Honda just made a decision that's going to shake the entire automotive industry to its core. After betting billions on electric vehicles, the Japanese giant is walking away from that dream entirely, and in its place, they're launching a hybrid offensive so aggressive, it's going to force every other automaker to completely rethink their strategy. This is the story of how one company's biggest failure became the catalyst for the biggest market shift in automotive history. For the last decade, the narrative has been crystal clear. Every major automaker was racing toward one destination: full electrification. Tesla was leading the charge, and companies like Volkswagen, General Motors, and Ford were all pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into electric vehicle development. The message was uniform: the future was electric. Gas engines were dying. Hybrids were just a transitional technology, nothing more than a stopgap measure for companies that couldn't keep up with the times. But there was one company in Tokyo that started to see the cracks in this narrative. Honda, a manufacturer with nearly 7 decades of innovation behind them, looked at the market data and saw something that nobody else wanted to admit. The numbers didn't lie. Consumers weren't buying electric vehicles at the rate that the industry had promised. Manufacturing costs remained stubbornly high. Battery technology was advancing slower than expected. And, perhaps most importantly, the charging infrastructure that was supposed to revolutionize transportation was nowhere near ready for mass adoption. While executives at other companies kept pushing forward with their EV dreams, Honda's leadership started asking difficult questions. What if we're wrong? What if the transition to electrification isn't going to happen the way we thought? Then came May 2025, and Honda's global CEO, Toshihiro Mibe, dropped a bombshell announcement. The company would be reducing its electric vehicle investments by $20 billion through 2030. This wasn't a minor adjustment or a strategic pause. This was a complete reversal of direction. Honda was stepping back from its internally developed EV program, walking away from its joint venture with Sony called Afeela, and refocusing its massive resources on a technology that the entire industry had written off as yesterday's news: hybrid vehicles. But this announcement only scratched the surface of what was about to unfold. The real earthquake came exactly 1 year later, in May 2026, when Honda held its business briefing in Tokyo. This was the moment when the automotive industry would realize that Honda wasn't just making a tactical adjustment. They were executing a complete strategic transformation that would reshape the entire market. Toshihiro Mibe stood before investors and announced something that seemed almost unthinkable in this age of electrification obsession. Honda was going to launch 15 new hybrid models globally by the end of fiscal year 2030. Not 5, not 10, 15. And the vast majority of them would be targeting North America, the world's most important automotive market. To understand why this announcement was so shocking, you need to understand what led to it. Honda's EV ambitions had cost them dearly. The company took a massive financial hit from canceling its nascent electric vehicle lineup. The joint venture with Sony, which was supposed to be the company's flagship EV program, had to be completely abandoned. The write-offs were so significant that Honda posted its first annual loss since going public in 1957. The number was staggering: $2.6 billion in a single fiscal year. That's the kind of loss that forces a company to completely reevaluate everything. This wasn't just about money, though. It was about credibility. Honda had been the company that invented the hybrid. Back in the early 2000s, when everyone else was skeptical about hybrid technology, Honda believed in it. The company built its expertise on hybrid systems. They understood the technology at a level that few other manufacturers could match. Yet, in the race to electrification, even Honda started to downplay their hybrid expertise. They started to act like hybrids were a temporary fix, something to bridge the gap until full EVs took over. But the market was sending them a different message every single day. The turning point came when Honda's leadership looked at actual consumer behavior, not industry predictions or regulatory requirements, but real consumer behavior. What they found was undeniable. In markets where gas prices spiked above $4.50 per gallon, demand for hybrids skyrocketed. According to data from CarGurus, hybrid demand hit its highest mark in the past year at levels the industry hadn't seen before. More shockingly, hybrid demand was more than double that of electric vehicles. Let that sink in. Consumers were choosing hybrids over EVs by a 2-to-1 margin. This wasn't the transition that the industry had promised. This was the market telling every automaker that they had misread the room entirely. The research was thorough and undeniable. Across multiple regions, across different demographic segments, across both urban and rural markets, the pattern was consistent. When consumers faced the choice between a hybrid vehicle and an electric vehicle, they overwhelmingly chose the hybrid. The reasons were clear when you talked to customers. Range anxiety with EVs was real. Charging infrastructure was inadequate in most places. Battery replacement costs were prohibitive. And perhaps most importantly, hybrids offered familiar technology that consumers understood and trusted. They didn't require the complete reimagining of driving habits that EVs demanded. A hybrid was a logical evolution of what consumers already knew and loved about traditional gasoline vehicles. Honda listened, and that listening led directly to the announcement in May 2026. The strategy was bold, comprehensive, and unapologetic. The company would reallocate more development and production resources into hybrid models than it had ever done before. The entire organization would be restructured around this new priority. Factories would be retooled, development timelines would be accelerated, supply chains would be redesigned. Everything would be subordinated to one goal: getting 15 new hybrid models to market faster than anyone thought possible. The first wave of these models would start hitting dealerships in 2027. These wouldn't be minor updates or refreshes to existing models. These would be completely new hybrid systems built on an entirely new platform. The technical specifications alone made this clear. Honda was developing a hybrid powertrain that would reduce system costs by more than 30% compared to the hybrid system they introduced in 2023. Think about that. The technology they had been iterating on for 2 decades could be made 30% cheaper while simultaneously improving performance and efficiency. At the same time, Honda was targeting a fuel economy improvement of more than 10%. The new systems would include a newly developed electric all-wheel drive unit, giving hybrid vehicles capabilities that only premium electric vehicles could previously offer. To make this happen, Honda showcased 2 prototypes at the Tokyo Business Briefing. The first was the Honda Hybrid Sedan prototype, a vehicle that signaled a dramatic departure from Honda's traditional sedan design. This wasn't a conservative evolution of the current Accord. The prototype featured an aggressive fastback design that seemed to draw inspiration from high-performance vehicles. Some analysts suggested it might even feature a liftback hatch configuration instead of a traditional trunk, a design choice that would maximize interior space and cargo capacity. The sedan would be the foundation for the next generation of Honda's midsize lineup, a category where hybrids had already proven incredibly popular. The second prototype was equally significant. The Acura hybrid SUV prototype represented something unprecedented for Honda's luxury division. Acura had been struggling to maintain market relevance as luxury buyers migrated toward SUVs and crossovers. This prototype incorporated Acura's latest design language, featuring sleek styling cues and details like flush door handles that signaled a premium positioning. The vehicle appeared similar in size and styling to an Acura subcompact SUV, but it would be built on Honda's new hybrid platform. This prototype was telling investors and customers one clear message: the future of Acura wasn't in failed EV experiments or conservative hybrid conversions. It was in completely reimagined hybrid vehicles that offered luxury, performance, and efficiency in a package that consumers actually wanted to buy. Both prototypes were scheduled to go on sale within the next 2 years, meaning they would hit dealerships somewhere around 2028. But this was just the beginning. These 2 models would be joined by 13 other hybrid vehicles, all launching before March 31st, 2030. The portfolio would include comprehensive coverage across Honda's entire lineup. The Civic, which is the retail #1 model in the industry's largest passenger car segment, would continue its hybrid expansion. The Civic Hybrid was already capturing over 25% of all segment sales and was named the 2025 North American Car of the Year. For 2026, the Civic Hybrid was offered as either a sedan or a hatchback, combining the fun-to-drive spirit of Civic with Honda's award-winning 2-motor hybrid electric system. The Civic Hybrid delivered quick, effortless acceleration while achieving outstanding EPA fuel economy ratings of 50 miles per gallon in the city and 47 miles per gallon on the highway. These weren't theoretical numbers. These were real-world EPA ratings that consumers could depend on. The Accord, America's best-selling car over the last 5 decades with nearly 15 million sold since its debut, would also receive a new generation hybrid treatment. The refreshed 2026 Accord was already making up over 25% of all retail mid-size car purchases, with the Accord Hybrid representing more than 50% of all Accord sales. The sleek, powerful, electrified 2026 Accord Hybrid delivered exceptional performance and outstanding efficiency with EPA fuel economy ratings of 51 miles per gallon in the city and 44 miles per gallon on the highway. The CR-V, Honda's retail #1 model in the industry's largest segment and the best-selling Honda vehicle overall, would continue to expand its hybrid offerings. Hybrid models already represented more than 50% of all CR-V sales, making it one of the most successful hybrid applications in the market. The new generation of these vehicles would build on this success, but with dramatically improved efficiency and performance characteristics. Then there was the legendary 2026 Honda Prelude, a name that hadn't graced a Honda product since 2001. The return of Prelude represented Honda's confidence in the hybrid future. This wasn't just another model edition. This was the restoration of an iconic nameplate, and it was exclusively hybrid. The 2026 Honda Prelude was the brand's first hybrid electric model to feature the high-performance chassis hardware of the legendary Civic Type R. This wasn't marketing hype. This was engineering reality. The Prelude featured the same dual-axis strut-front suspension, the same wide front and rear tracks, and the same large brakes that were originally designed for the Civic Type R hot hatch. When a manufacturer takes chassis hardware from its performance flagship and puts it on a hybrid, it's sending a clear message. Hybrids aren't compromises anymore. They're genuine performance vehicles. The Prelude paired the award-winning Honda 2-motor hybrid electric powertrain with this performance chassis, delivering precise steering, responsive handling, and a fun-to-drive feel that was designed to provide an engaging grand touring experience while remaining comfortable for everyday driving. But perhaps the most revolutionary part of the Prelude was the debut of something called Honda S Plus Shift. This was an innovative new drive mode that simulated a performance transmission experience. It was Honda's answer to the criticism that hybrid vehicles lacked the visceral engagement of traditional manual or sports transmissions. By precisely managing engine RPM and integrating paddle shifters, Honda S Plus Shift delivered quick, simulated gear shift responses through seamless coordination between the engine and high-power motor. It included downshift blips, rev matching, and gear holding, technologies that sports car enthusiasts had come to expect. Honda announced plans to feature S Plus Shift on future hybrid electric vehicle models, indicating that this wasn't a one-off feature for the Prelude. This was the future of how Honda would approach hybrid performance. Looking forward to 2029, Honda had something even more dramatic planned. For the first time in the company's history, Honda would introduce large-size hybrid models in the D segment or above. These would include vehicles comparable in size to the Acura MDX, Honda Pilot, and Honda Passport. These were vehicles that had traditionally been the domain of large, thirsty V8 engines. These were vehicles that buyers had never associated with hybrid technology. Yet Honda was going to transform this category. The company was developing a new hybrid system with improved towing capacity and environmental performance, along with a newly developed V6 engine. These large-size hybrids would be crucial for meeting strong demand for HEV models in North America, particularly among buyers who needed genuine towing capability and power alongside exceptional environmental performance. To make all of this possible, Honda wasn't just announcing products. The company was transforming its entire manufacturing footprint. This was the unsexy but absolutely critical part of the strategy. All of Honda's North American plants would be reconfigured to manufacture hybrid vehicles. The company's Ohio facilities, which had originally been positioned as an EV hub to produce electric vehicles, would have their excess capacity reallocated to production of gasoline and hybrid vehicles. The Marysville and East Liberty plants in Ohio would see increased hybrid capacity. Eventually, Honda wanted every North American factory to have hybrid production capabilities, dramatically reducing operational costs and shortening supply chains. This manufacturing transformation was so significant that Honda had to work with its battery supplier to make it happen. Honda and its joint venture partner LG Energy Solution jointly operated LH Battery Company, which had been building EV battery production lines. Now, the company announced that it would convert part of those EV battery production lines to hybrid battery production. This wasn't a minor adjustment. This was a complete reorientation of billions of dollars in manufacturing infrastructure. The message to employees, suppliers, and investors was unmistakable. This wasn't a temporary pivot. This was the permanent future of Honda's business. The financial targets Honda set for itself were equally ambitious. The company was targeting a record consolidated operating profit of over 1.4 trillion yen by fiscal year 2029. To achieve this, Honda needed to execute flawlessly on its hybrid strategy while simultaneously improving manufacturing efficiency and reducing development costs. The strategy was built on the foundation of Honda's proven hybrid expertise. The company had stated that hybrid models would play a key role during the transitional period leading up to full electrification. But the company was also being realistic about the time frame. While EVs would eventually dominate, that future was decades away. In the next 5 to 10 years, hybrids would be the technology that generated profits, satisfied customers, and addressed environmental challenges. Honda's confidence in this strategy extended beyond North America. The company identified India as one of its priority growth markets alongside Japan and the United States. Starting in 2028, Honda planned to introduce India-focused models in the sub-4 meter and mid-size segments while leveraging its strong motorcycle customer base to grow passenger vehicle sales. The company also planned to increase localization, improve manufacturing efficiency, and aggressively reduce development timelines through AI and digital engineering tools under its new triple half strategy. This indicated that the hybrid offensive wasn't just an American phenomenon, it was a global strategic shift. The question that many industry observers were asking was straightforward. Why was Honda so confident in this strategy? The answer lay in market data and consumer behavior. While some manufacturers continued to invest in EV dreams, Honda was responding to what consumers actually wanted. Demand for hybrids had hit its highest mark in recent years, particularly when gas prices climbed above $4.50 per gallon. In a market where fuel prices were volatile and charging infrastructure remained underdeveloped, hybrid vehicles made sense. They offered the benefits of fuel efficiency without requiring consumers to overhaul their entire driving experience. Honda was the #1 full-line automaker in fuel efficiency, according to the latest U.S. EPA Trends report. This wasn't an accident. It was the result of decades of engineering excellence and a commitment to efficiency that never wavered, even when the industry became obsessed with electrification. The Civic Hybrid, the Accord Hybrid, and the CR-V Hybrid were all demonstrating that consumers believed in this promise. They were voting with their wallets, and the vote was overwhelming. When Accord Hybrid was already representing more than 50% of all Accord sales, and when Civic Hybrid was representing about 1/3 of all Civic sales, the market was speaking with unambiguous clarity. The broader implications of Honda's strategy were becoming increasingly clear to industry analysts and competitors. If Honda could successfully execute this plan, the company would fundamentally reshape the automotive market. 15 new models by 2030, built on a new platform with a new hybrid system, 30% cheaper to produce, 10% more efficient, and available in every segment from compact cars to large SUVs. This wasn't a niche strategy. This was a portfolio transformation that would touch virtually every customer segment Honda served. Toyota, which had pioneered hybrid technology and maintained its leadership position through brands like Prius and Lexus, would suddenly face competition at a completely different level. Ford, which had announced its own pivot toward hybrids after reducing its EV ambitions, would find itself in competition with a manufacturer that was moving even faster and more decisively. General Motors, which was still heavily invested in EV development, would have to watch as an entire market segment shifted back toward hybrids. Volkswagen, which had bet its future on rapid electrification, would face a similar reckoning. The technology specifications themselves were remarkable. A 30% reduction in hybrid system costs while simultaneously improving fuel efficiency by 10% and adding new features like electric all-wheel drive wasn't a minor engineering achievement. This represented years of development work, countless iterations, and fundamental breakthroughs in hybrid system design. The new two-motor hybrid system offered a greater efficient operating range for the engine and higher driving efficiency for the hybrid unit compared to existing systems. This wasn't just evolutionary progress. This was revolutionary progress. What made Honda's position even stronger was the advanced driver assistance system upgrade that the company was planning. Honda announced plans to launch next-generation ADAS technology in 2028, with plans to apply it to more than 15 models over a 5-year period. This next-generation system would offer control over acceleration and steering for a whole route based on navigation data, functioning on both expressways and local streets to create a stress-free mobility experience. Honda was striving to couple this automation technology with its long-standing focus on the joys of driving, ensuring that these vehicles weren't just efficient but genuinely enjoyable to operate. The market context made Honda's timing even more significant. The global automotive industry was at an inflection point. Regulatory requirements for emissions reductions were becoming increasingly stringent. Consumer demand for more fuel-efficient vehicles was intensifying, particularly as oil prices remained volatile. The electric vehicle transition that everyone had predicted was happening more slowly and more unevenly than expected. In this environment, Honda's hybrid strategy wasn't just sound business planning, it was a realistic assessment of the near-term future of transportation. For content creators and automotive enthusiasts, Honda's announcement represented a fascinating case study in strategic decision-making. Here was a major corporation that had invested billions in a particular direction, realized it had miscalculated, and then had the institutional strength to completely change course. The company didn't try to defend its EV investments or pretend that the Afeela cancellation was anything other than what it was, a miscalculation. Instead, Honda acknowledged the loss, learned from it, and moved decisively in a new direction. The implications for consumers were equally significant. If Honda successfully delivered on its promises, buyers would soon have access to an unprecedented range of hybrid vehicles across every market segment. These wouldn't be second-rate compromises or vehicles hamstrung by inefficient technology. These would be products designed from the ground up to deliver efficiency, performance, and value. The fact that Honda was featuring Type R chassis hardware on the Prelude and introducing S+ Shift technology demonstrated that the company was thinking of hybrids as premium products, not budget alternatives. The economic implications were staggering. If hybrid vehicles captured significantly larger market share over the next 5 years, the entire automotive supply chain would be affected. Battery suppliers, electric motor manufacturers, and hybrid system component makers would see dramatically increased demand. Traditional internal combustion engine suppliers might face different pressures, but Honda's commitment to maintaining gasoline engines alongside its hybrid expansion indicated that the market wouldn't completely abandon conventional powertrains. This was a transition, not a revolution. Looking at the specific timeline, the first models would begin arriving in 2027. The Honda hybrid sedans and Acura hybrid SUV prototypes would transition from concept to production vehicles within the next 2 years. By 2028, next-generation ADAS technology would begin appearing on Honda vehicles. By 2029, large-sized D-segment hybrid models would arrive in North America. And by March 31, 2030, 15 completely new hybrid models would be in dealerships worldwide, primarily in North America. This was an aggressive timeline for a manufacturer the size of Honda, but it was achievable because the company was leveraging its existing hybrid expertise rather than building something entirely new from scratch. The decision to make all North American plants capable of producing hybrid vehicles was particularly strategic. It meant that if demand shifted unexpectedly or consumer preferences changed, Honda had the flexibility to adjust production volumes quickly. It also meant that suppliers and partners would benefit from economies of scale that would make hybrid vehicles even more cost competitive. The conversion of EV battery production lines to hybrid battery production sent a clear signal about priorities, but it also kept the door open for future EV production if market conditions changed again. What Honda had effectively done was call the automotive industry's bluff. The entire sector had been acting as if electrification was inevitable and imminent, but consumers were revealing, through their purchasing behavior, that they preferred hybrids. They liked the efficiency benefits without the range anxiety and charging infrastructure challenges. They appreciated the performance without the premium prices. Honda was betting that this consumer preference would continue and intensify, and the company was organizing its entire business around that bet. If Honda proved correct, every other automaker would face enormous pressure to shift their strategies as well. The broader automotive transformation that would result from Honda's strategy would likely be discussed for years. Business schools would analyze how a company recovering from a $2.6 billion loss could have the confidence to make such sweeping changes. Engineering schools would study how Honda achieved 30% cost reductions while improving efficiency and performance. And automotive enthusiasts would watch closely to see whether the Prelude and other new models delivered on the promise of hybrid vehicles that were genuinely fun to drive. What made Honda's pivot particularly interesting was the international dimension. While North America was the primary focus, Honda's global strategy ensured this hybrid transformation would touch markets worldwide. India, identified as a priority growth market, would receive specially engineered hybrid vehicles designed for that market's unique requirements. Japan would see these new hybrids arrive as well, potentially disrupting Toyota's market position. Europe would eventually receive these vehicles, particularly as consumers began embracing hybrids as a practical alternative to expensive EVs. The competition was watching carefully. Toyota's hybrid leadership, built over decades with the Prius franchise, would suddenly face unprecedented competition from Honda at every price point and in every segment. Lexus hybrids would encounter new Acura hybrids with cutting-edge technology and aggressive pricing. Ford's own hybrid strategy, while moving in the right direction, was less comprehensive than Honda's plan. General Motors' commitment to full electrification meant the company would have to either double down on that bet or risk being caught off guard by Honda's offensive. Volkswagen's massive EV investment would look increasingly risky if hybrid demand continued to surge. In the end, Honda's announcement in May 2026 represented much more than just a new product plan. It represented a fundamental shift in how the automotive industry would approach the transition to more sustainable transportation. The dream of rapid full electrification was being replaced by a more pragmatic vision, where hybrids would serve as the bridge technology for the foreseeable future. Honda had been the first major company to bet big on this future, and the company's success or failure would influence every other automaker's strategy going forward. The automotive world was about to be shaken to its core, and Honda was the one holding the detonator. This was the story of how one company's biggest failure became the catalyst for the biggest market shift in automotive history. The implications would be felt throughout the industry for years to come. Consumers would benefit from more choices, better efficiency, and vehicles that didn't compromise on performance or driving enjoyment. The industry would be forced to recalibrate its approach to electrification, recognizing that the path forward would be longer and more nuanced than anticipated. And Honda, rising from the ashes of its EV failure, would emerge as the company that understood the market better and had the courage to act on that understanding.